A Million Ways to Die in the West tells the story of Albert who must reclaim his love in the wild, wild west. And I have to say that while the film certainly holds some promise, unfortunately it just doesn't satisfy. The simplest thing I can really say about A Million Ways to Die in the West is that it is a film that is trying to come across as a comedy, of course, but unfortunately the very situations within the film are not necessarily funny. Rather, they are genuine situations that could occur in any other film or even a drama or a romantic film for that matter. But really, within each scene, the film tries to add in humor through various different dialogues that oftentimes just are not necessary, thereby taking away from what could have been an interesting, light-hearted romantic comedy, really making this film all the more strange because it feels like everything it is trying to elevate itself with is ultimately causing its downfall. Because I must admit that at the core of it, A Million Ways to Die in the West tells this slightly interesting story about Albert, who used to be in love with Louise and now Anna's in his life, and he's really trying to prove to Louise that he was worthy to have her, but really, unfortunately, the film makes attempts to be humorous. While it does succeed rarely, there are moments where it just puts you off from anything going on screen. Rather, while the film's primary purpose is to make you laugh, that is the part that it succeeds at least. I have to say that the humor during the film does satisfy sometimes because of one particular song, especially that will get stuck in your head, but at other times, it's so disgusting it makes you feel ill at ease. In fact, the constant use of jokes relating to death and disease after a point really don't appeal to me as an audience member. Furthermore, while the film is within the very setting of the Wild Wild West, unfortunately it does not take advantage of that setting as it should. Of course, it acknowledges and takes notice of the very dearth and the sad life that people live in the Wild Wild West. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't go to the extent that I believe that it easily could have in terms of acknowledging certain tropes that have been used in certain Western films and really focusing or even parodying them to a certain extent. And really, apart from one particular chase scene and one scene in which the character of Albert is receiving gun-related training, which actually adds a lot to the relationship between Albert and Anna, there is no real use of the very setting, and unfortunately the film did not take the opportunity that it so easily presented itself with. And to add to that, the film does have this very self-aware idea, one of the genre, but two really of the fact that it is leaning towards a comedic film in and of itself, and while it does manage to inject a tidbit of humor because of that, really most of the film consists of several reaction shots, often even disgusted reactions, perhaps trying to add something funny to the film, but really you feel just as disgusted as those on screen or as shocked as those on screen, not really adding to any natural progression in terms of the characters' reactions once certain events occur. Rather, they are mere events in time that are completely forgotten about in scenes later, or they don't really have a full payoff. I guess I have to say that I was heavily disappointed by A Million Ways to Die in the West. While it does have a slightly interesting love story, or a love triangle if you will, within the film, really, its attempts at humor that in fact, had they been removed, would have made for a light-hearted, simple, and enjoyable comedy, but unfortunately, A Million Ways to Die in the West is just not that. I'm gonna give A Million Ways to Die in the West a double no.